But first, Canberra's design future has long been a focus for Stateline, from planning issues through to shrinking block sizes and development debates. The issue was prominent again this week. The local chapter of the Architects Institute of Australia caused a stir by calling for more urban infill in a city famous for its open spaces. The institute warns Canberra's suburban sprawl is hurting the environment and is unsustainable socially and economically. It suggests doubling the density of housing in some areas.
We're not suggesting that the whole of Canberra should be redeveloped as high-rise, but around the town centres I think there's a great opportunity there that we should take.
These kind of suggestions bear no reality at all to what the possibilities are or what the ambitions are of the citizens of Canberra. And I find it tiresome in the extreme that we have to keep on having this debate.
We believe that urban consolidation is the way to go in the ACT. We think it's a smart way of building resilience for climate change.
The reality is we're in a pretty big open space here in Canberra. The only walls we have around us in reality are the ACT New South Wales borders.
It's not a new call, but it's guaranteed to spark debate every time, especially in the bush capital. Stop the urban sprawl, or stop the trend to build yet more housing on the outskirts of Canberra and start building up and around the existing town centres.
I do get upset with the way the city sprawls out beyond the frontier, and I'd much rather see developments in the inner city.
I think there'd be enormous resistance in Canberra if increased urban consolidation was at the expense of the parklands and green spaces in the city.
But if a local architects group gets its way, that's exactly what could happen.
I travel past on my way to work most days the horse paddocks that are opposite the Mint on Adelaide Avenue. I think there's a great opportunity for a site like that. Qualifying that with a bit of further investigation and research, that certainly needs to happen. But there's an opportunity there for an urban village, a mixed-use development of both residential and commercial. It's right on the bus network. The buses could quite easily divert into that area.
They're just kind of childlike suggestions, because the notion that you should have a village and all the problems associated with village life in a city like Canberra is bizarre. That's what happens at the moment with the people who are at the latter stages of their life who are in retirement places. But to think of putting ordinary households into those kind of circumstances strikes me as having no contact with what's really happening in the city.
Canberra's northern fringe may already look packed, and there's more to come. These newer suburbs, according to some, are part of the problem. But for the people who call the city limits home, they wouldn't have it any other way. Gungahlin could very well be regarded as being part of this urban sprawl, but how do you feel about being defined in this way?
Well, I think sprawl's a negative term, used very deliberately against people who would prefer to live in suburbs. But people have a right to be able to build a house and have a yard for their kids to play in, to grow some food if they want. They have a right to choice, just as much as people who prefer to have a place without a yard to live in high density have the right to make that choice also.
Couples with young children would like a backyard, and people that have got hobbies and activities, they certainly like to have a house and a garage on a separate block, and that's fine. But there are also a large number of people in this day and age that do like to live in more dense accommodation, apartments and flats. And we're saying that there are a lot of sites in the city, particularly around the town centres.
I think it's a very one-sided argument. It's only looking at a very small part of the entire equation. There's no regard being given for the social aspects of density or low density living, and there's no regard for being given for anything like the other environmental aspects of being able to plant trees and things around houses.
David Flannery's vision is not only to fill the city from the inside out, but also from the ground up, to build around existing services rather than stretching them even further.
Around the town centres, I do believe that there is an opportunity for some higher rise developments than what's currently being allowed. One of the difficulties with Sky Plaza is that it's out on its own. It needs a few other buildings of 6, 8 and 10 stories around it that could, in the future, make it feel a little bit more at home sitting there on that lonely site in Woden.
I don't think it's necessary to go up to 15, 20 stories. I think there is plenty of land available to consolidate development below the tree line and keep the character of Canberra as it is. I think most Canberrans would not want to see high-rise areas sprouting up all over the place.
High-rise housing is actually environmentally quite unsound. It is extremely energy expensive, and both in terms of the actual construction and of the operation of the buildings themselves. And the other thing, of course, is that it is also a very expensive form of accommodation. The unit costs of construction are not only high, but they also have a continuing cost, and that kind of accommodation also inevitably means that households are put under the control of bodies corporate who have all sorts of effects on the way people use that accommodation or live in those so-called communities.
The distance from the top end of Canberra at Amaroo and Ford through to the south, down in Conda and Bonython, is between 40 and 45 kilometres in a straight line. That's about the same distance in Sydney from Bondi Beach right through to Blacktown as the crow flies. So Sydney has a population more than 10 times that of Canberra, but the footprint is not a lot bigger than what we live in here.